Hey guys, and welcome back to Armchair Conversations with Rob. Lately, I've been asking you to get a pen and piece of paper. Um, this time you can, or you don't have to, but I am going to ask you some questions that I want you to think about. Okay. One of the things I want to ask you is, what are you doing? And what do I mean by that? What are you doing? Meaning, um, as far as the things that you want in life, the goals and dreams that you have, um, what are you doing to get them? What are you doing on a better note, even to help your life to be pleasant and comfortable and have some joy and some fun in life? So, what are you doing? And what are some of the habits and things that you do that bring you happiness and joy as far as your personal life? But also, what are you doing in terms of things that are going to move you forward in your goals and your dreams for the things that maybe you want in life but you haven't yet achieved? So that's question number one. What am I doing? Or what are you doing? Okay. Question number two is, what about that is working? So that one, in a way, is kind of easy because basically you're going to look at what you're doing and look at whether or not it does what you intended for it to do. Like it brings you joy, it gives you a sense of purpose, it makes you feel good, it allows you to do something that you want, like helping other people. And so, you know, what works? So let's play with those two for just a second because sometimes we do a lot of things on a daily basis and we don't even realize how many things we do. But by the same token, on the negative side of that, we also do a lot of things every day that don't really give us joy, that don't really move us forward, that don't really fall in line with the goals that we have for ourselves. Um, Case in point, I said once before, if you're expecting to see a sunrise by running west, you got a problem. Um, but things that you do every day are like that too. There are things that you do every day, um, like get into conversations with people about the same old stuff that just upsets you and aggravates you. That one is probably more common than most people, think about. Or you say or do things to others or to yourself that aren't really uplifting and furthering the goal. Trying to think of one real quick, like being condescending to people that you feel are beneath you, or um, being less than supportive when someone comes to you with a dream of theirs, or a goal that they're after, and because maybe you've known them for years, or you remember when they were this way or that way, you may not be encouraging. Okay. Those things aren't really furthering anyone. They're not making more of you because it kind of cheapens you and puts you down as well as what you think you're doing when you put someone else down. But also too, it doesn't help either of you to move toward the goal, or if nothing else, the realization. Let's say you are absolutely right about something. Somebody comes to you with some goal or dream that they have, and you know them very well, or you know of their practices, behaviors, and you don't feel like they're going to be able to do that thing. And you just have to let them know because you're about being real, keeping it real, okay, and all that other bullshit that people spit, okay, when really what you're doing is discouraging someone from trying to do something that's going to make them happy. And sometimes it's better to be kind than to be right. I heard Wayne Dyer say that once, and I had to think about that for a while because there were times when I was so caught up in being so brutally honest because I thought that that was this admirable trait instead of learning to have some tact when I speak to people about things that maybe I don't believe that they can do. And once or twice I've been supremely uh, surprised that they may have come forward and done exactly what they said they were going to do that maybe I didn't think they were going to do. I was pleasantly disappointed. I'll say it that way. So again, what are you doing and what works? If it's not something that's enlivening you, bringing you forward, bringing another person forward, encouraging someone, encouraging yourself, I ask you to examine your reasoning and your motives behind what you're doing and why. Okay. The third question is the obvious one. What doesn't work? Because it's really a lot easier for us to tell people what we don't want than it is to tell them what we do want. Um, we can always think of all the reasons why something's going to fail quite easily, but we can't always look at all the reasons it's going to succeed. So let's break that down to a person. Sometimes you can look at all the things that they used to do or woulda, coulda, shoulda done, and that be your reasoning for why they can't do whatever it is that they have said they're going to do. I have trouble with it sometimes because I'm just as guilty of it as you. I've looked at people and said, because you're this, that, and the other. But the truth of the matter is, um, you're looking at who they were and not necessarily who they are. And there are people that are going to do the same thing to you. They look at you as who you were, not who you are. And so I encourage you to use these three questions to help you. And so first of all, you take question number one, what am I doing? And you look at it and you try to look at it from the standpoint of, what is this bringing me? Not that everything has to be about getting something, but what is this bringing me? Okay, is it bringing me joy? Is it putting me closer to my goal? Is it making me more educated toward the thing I want to do? Is it giving me experience? Is it giving me some kind of feedback? And you do have to take the time to look at what you're doing and what it's giving you, especially if you're talking about moving forward toward a goal or moving toward, personal development, or moving toward even relationships with people. What am I doing and what is it giving me? A lot of times when we look at our relationships with our friends, family, and significant others, we don't always put this question to work because we don't look at what we're doing and the impact that it's having until sometimes the ball has bounced. Okay, the proverbial shit has hit the fan, until it's too late, and now it needs to be salvaged or repaired rather than to be, maintained. And so I ask you to examine what you're doing and look at the results that it's getting you and do it honestly and do it intelligently, because it takes a little doing sometimes to step outside of yourself, particularly out of your ego self that wants to be the awesome person all the time, and look at what the impact is of what you're doing. Okay. Now, that being said, you got the positive and the negative too. What works? If some of the things you're doing are getting you the results that you need, or if they're getting you closer to your goal or getting you set up in a way that it is training you, educating you, giving you experience to use toward the ultimate goal that you're after, then you're good. If it's not, then you got to look at question number three, which is what doesn't work. Okay. What is about this situation isn't giving me what I need? Is something that I'm doing going to hold me back from what my results are, what my goals are? If my running with Slick Willie is going to pour Slick Willie, I haven't talked about him 2, 3 times. What is messing me up? Then I've got to cut that loose if I wish to go further. That's something that's kind of hard sometimes because we are very attached to our story, and sometimes we're very attached to the things that we once held dear. Um, and we don't want to give them up because, one, we think we are going to cheapen the experience or minimize its importance. Two, that that we can never regain that, or or if we somehow move away from it, that we are bad and it's a travesty, or that it's, three, never going to be repaired, never going to be evolved, if we leave it and then come back to pick it up later. Um, Brother, you can always pick it up later. There is always going to, the mess and the drama that you leave behind is usually always waiting for you. It's just like, shiftless, lazy joker this marking time on the stoop talking shit about everybody, he's going to be right there if that's all he ever does when you get back from whatever journey you're on. So, again, look at what doesn't work and be willing to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, this is not working. Why is it not working? What am I doing to contribute to it? And how am I going to fix it if I wish to fix it? Because there are times when people don't want to fix it. Okay, they want to stay right where they are. And that's okay. As long as you know what you're doing and you're choosing it consciously, I never stand in judgment. Okay, but I do stand in judgment of people who don't choose it consciously. They sit there, on the one hand, they tell you they wish that they were in a better place or doing something better, doing something different, but their actions don't match with the goal that they've outlined to you publicly. Where maybe subconsciously and in private, they may have a very different one, but that's another story for another time. So look at what doesn't work. Look at how it ties into what you're doing, okay, and what does work. Once you got that down and you start to chip away and you start to make adjustments and you start to move things around and you start to play with things and you start to ask better questions, instead of asking, why does this happen to me? You start asking, how can I get out of it? Okay. Because if you ask why it happens to you, you'll get an answer. Okay. And it's always going to be the one that supports the question you asked versus how. It's like, why am I not good enough? Why am I bad? You will get answers to that, and your brain and other people will come up with a million answers to add to your list. But if you ask, how can I become better? How can I be um, more use? How can I develop myself? Then you'll get answers based on those questions you ask. So we'll talk about smart questions another time too, but I just want you to be aware that the questions you ask will always give you an answer. You have to be aware of what questions you ask because they're going to determine what answers you get, and those answers are going to either keep you stuck or bring you closer toward your goals. Okay. Now, so we talked about what am I doing? We talked about what works, and we talked about what doesn't work. Well, I'd like to add a fourth area because once you start to roll these three things around and start getting answers that you can work with and that are good and that are going to produce results and change some things, then you take my number four, which is to take time that you've gotten back from the stuff that doesn't work that you've gotten rid of and put it into number one and number two again. Okay, because if you eliminate certain behaviors and practices from your daily life, your personality, your sphere of dominance, okay, you can take the time that was spent on those endeavors and put it back into the endeavors that do work, okay, and you can put it back into asking the question, what am I doing, again, to re-examine. And this is kind of a very simple way to evolve because you ask what you're doing, you ask what works, you ask what doesn't work, you eliminate what doesn't work as you can find it, because again, we're human beings and we all have what they call scotomas or blind spots, things we can't see about ourselves and about our situation and about our sphere of influence. But as you find things that don't work and you eliminate them, then it frees up time and resources, in this case energy and focus, to put back into what does work so it can increase, expand, and grow, because whatever you focus on expands, you know. And then asking the question again about what you're doing or how can I instead of why can't I. So anyway, just wanted to touch on that, give you some food for thought to play with. So to rehash, 4 questions, one of which is mine, but probably borrowed it from someone else because I'm sure I'm not the only person that thinks this. But number one, what am I doing? Take a look at it. Get some ideas and answers about the consequences of your actions and what they're yielding you. Okay. Number two, what works? So what about the things that you already do? Because listen, nobody does everything perfectly, but nobody does everything horribly either. There are going to be some things about you and what you're doing based on what you've learned, what you've seen, what you've emulated that are going to work. And you should keep those things. So number 2 is what works. Number 3 is what doesn't work. You look at the parts that aren't serving you, aren't getting you where you want to go, aren't building your relationships with other people and with the world, and you remove them. Which again, we'll talk about that in another talk, but you remove those things from your sphere of influence, from your personality, you drive them out. And as you do that and you eliminate those behaviors and actions and thoughts, it's going to free up more real estate in your head as far as energy and time and ability to go back and put into what does work, that's expanding and growing because you're feeding it, and being able to ask the questions again about what you're doing so you can re-examine the process all over again, because it's a process. It is not just a one-shot thing and then you never use it again. It is a ongoing process. And every time that you increase the things that are working in your life and find new things that are going to work in your life, and you ask those questions again about what you're doing and looking at the results, you will continue to work the weaknesses out of your personality and work the behaviors into your personality in your life that are going to grow you and expand you. So anyway, just wanted you to think about that one. Just want to throw it out there and have some sharing time with it. So again, give me your feedback and your comments, and I really appreciate it. And thank you, of course, for sharing my armchair.